Meeting to order. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and the city in which we live. Guide us this evening in the way we make our decisions. In Christ's name.
Amen.
Welcome to the March 25th, 2025 City Council work session. This is a meeting where we will take no action. So it's just a work session. It's not a public hearing, so there will not be public comments asked for. But, Mr. Smith, you're here this evening to take us through the work session.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is rezoning petition RZ 2025-02. It's impacting this tax parcel known as 098A-295. The request that is before you has already been to Planning Commission once. So I'll come to you all next month. It will be to change this from a low office and institutional density to RU7 for the purpose of developing a townhome residential development. The plan consists of about 33 townhomes. This slide just gives you an illustration of the 8.3 acres. The area in yellow shows you the wetlands, stream buffers that are the unbuildable, undevelopable area of the site. The area kind of in the orange stripe just really shows you the net area that can be developed upon. Back in 2004, this piece of land was part of a larger townhome development known as Golden Gate that came through and was approved. The portion that we're talking about is this area right down in here that was originally intended the RU2 zoning district at that time. In 2008, the piece was then rezoned from RU2 to OI1. At that point, the developer was interested in putting some office and medical buildings. Flash forward to 2025, the site has remained undeveloped, it's wooded. You have this request before you this evening from GHV Newnan LLC with Mr. Jones representing them. This is originally, like I said, 33 units. The site will be sold at market rate conditions. They put in here the anticipated market price of units would be anywhere from the high 400s to the low 500s, depending on the market at the end of completion. The site plan you have before you has gone through a couple of different staff reviews. We have massaged this a little bit with the suggestion of engineering, landscaping, and the utility company. What you see here is existing link on the south side of the project. The entrance will be here. This will be a one-way street. So traffic will come in, residents will go to their homes, they will exit out here on the north side and go right out. There'll be no full left turns coming out of this, so impact to traffic will be mitigated in that fashion. That was one of the design things. Also, we have engineering has agreed to allow this development to proceed with rollback curbs for the purpose of townhome developments, which will improve and enhance the development. Let's see. This gives you some examples of the proposed types of townhomes they hope to build.
Okay, so that's the streetscape.
Yes.
Want to make sure that we're looking at those that face the bypass or front doors.
I believe this would be the look here, if I'm not mistaken. This would be the kind of what they try to emulate all along the Newnan Crossing Boulevard East.
Okay.
And then there's some proposals on this back the corner piece as you're coming into it. See some of the streetscape features, the fences, the stonework, the ornamental aluminum fencing, along with the shrubs and trees that landscaping will have them also provide. Now, in addition to that, the applicant has agreed to expand and improve the link pedestrian path along the front of the property and the development. They're also agreeing to work in tandem with the developers across the road at looking at some sort of pedestrian access across Newnan Crossing Boulevard East. There was a conversation about a bridge. There's been a conversation about a tunnel, but they're willing to work with those developers, which is a project that's in the loop right now for a future road connection from the link to cross their way to that future development. This just kind of shows you an example of some of the backs of them with the decks, garages underneath the back decks. It's more of the rear loaded look.
So is that a 3-car or a 2-car garage?
I think it's 2 cars, isn't it?
2 car?
It's a 2-car garage.
24 foot?
I believe so.
or larger, look actually larger than a 20-foot.
There's 16.
Yeah, I think it's a car and a half.
It says 16.
Yeah, good.
So,
It's just the door on the end. It's giving you the bigger perspective.
like I said, the minimum lot size they're proposing is 2,100 square feet. Mike Furbish did look at this from the preliminary tree management plan. His concern, as is often the case with townhome developments, is enough spacing for plantings, which could be handled through a site development plan process, should it become that point. Additional comments were, of course, concerned about keeping out of the streams, the stream buffers. This plan does take that into consideration. They are respecting those buffers. They're not asking for any alleviation or variances from any of the state's buffer requirements. The focus of development will be keeping out of the wetlands and that type of thing. We do have the applicants with us this evening. If you do have any questions. As we mentioned, the Planning Commission heard this item March 11th. They did vote 3-2, recommending approval of the proposal. The only thing they added was that the number of rental units would be capped at 10%. Roughly 3 units would only be available for rent out of the 33 units that are proposed. And I also included a copy of the draft, copy of the minutes from that meeting for your information.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Smith? Any questions of?
Mr. Mayor, I've got one.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Smith, go over the connection with the link again for me. Is that a proffered condition, or is that part in stone, or is that just talking point?
It hasn't been written as such.
Okay.
We have had a conversation with them, and they are aware, and I can let the applicant speak further for that, but they have been in conversation, I believe, with the Turnstone Group developers across the road,
Okay.
and working with their engineers, determining where the best connection might be, where it's going to be feasible for their development and for the other development. But that is something that we've had a conversation with them about. I don't know at this point what that connection will be. I understand the latest thing was they're looking at the possibility of a tunnel. So that remains to be developed, but there is a commitment, I believe, from this developer to allow connection from the piece to the west
Okay.
to their piece.
In that piece to the west, it's on the right-hand side of this, kind of in that area.
Yeah, it's
Correct.
kind of up here. This is Newnan Crossing Boulevard East,
Okay.
so it'll be across the road over this area.
Right
Let's
in
see, I
there.
might have a better,
It's a bridge or a tunnel that Tombstone's?
I don't think at this point that's been decided
Okay.
affirmatively, but it's one of the two.
Is it possible the link could run behind the townhomes and give it that natural piece, so we're not doing a shared sidewalk?
You mean, well, the only issue you have with that is you run into the buffers and wetlands. Where is that?
I think we,
The link
the
runs
link
through-
can do that, yeah, the link can
Goes through the
accommodate
wetlands.
that.
Can't do that. I mean, that's, I think, Brad, you mentioned that there was acquisition by the city of land through here for the purpose of that link. Was a conversation we had at one point. And can the link run beside it? That possibly, but there are utilities that exist back there as well. There's a sewer easement, sewer line, so some thought would have to be connecting utilities from the existing behind Stonebridge to this proposed development.
It would be really cool if that thing could run and do a little loop out to that sidewalk behind the buildings, through that natural area. It would be spectacular, I believe. I haven't seen the land, but that section of the link that goes through the yellow is one of the prettier sections. It'd be quite an amenity for Newnan.
Noted. All right.
Well, I have a question if, and I know, speaking on what Mr. Furbush wrote, and some of his notes that were put in there, talking about the tree management plan, it meets the minimum requirements. It's quite dense, little room remaining, struggling to provide enough room for adequate tree plantings, and some concerns along the frontage, along the bypass there. And I'm just looking at the kind of the notes and the buffers, and it looks like it's going to be rather thin. And I'd hate for it to be noise complaints from all those folks living right along there with the traffic coming in and coming out, and just the traffic along the bypass there.
That did come out in our meetings we had with the applicant. You know, Mr. Furbish did indicate he would like to have at least a sufficient strip between the link and the units to propose a good buffer.
Yeah, and just
He
some
did
other
mention
sorts of vegetation, landscaping to,
Tree,
you know,
yeah.
add something, or something.
So he does mention you would like to see like a typical building layout, maybe showing how these townhomes would be laid out, the proposed landscape plan, which is something he did mention early on when he looked at the preliminary tree management plan.
Something, you know, I like the right in, right out, you know, because traffic is always an issue. Is that something we're gonna end up having to probably put up the bollards there too, because people wanting to make lefts in and lefts out?
I think there's an existing
There's a
median.
There is a median, but I've seen
It's a
people do
bit-
some crazy stuff.
No, there's a pretty wide median.
Is it wide enough?
There's one area right here, which is right now, I think, just a temporary, which could be isolated.
Yeah, I know where's that there.
Well, then you know the medium.
I just don't want people like cutting their own little cross through there.
There's absolutely, well,
And another question then is, oh, well, and I guess this is for the applicant, asking about street parking. Just because it's a car and a half garage, two-car garage. And is there adequate, is there, the streets wide enough to accommodate street parking? And then would there be an issue with the trash truck coming through?
You want to take that one?
Yeah, could we've got a rendering that shows that
If you'll,
in a video, could we pull that up?
you'll state your name for the record, please, for the minutes.
Mayor, council, my name is Stephen Jones, law firm of Taylor English, here today on behalf of the applicant. And I represent also Heatherland Homes, which is the builder. The owner is affiliated with the builder, Heatherland Homes. Accompanying me today is the engineer of record, Steve Moore. You'll see on the screen, zoomed in of the concept plan, we have on-street parking for overflow, but additionally, each townhome has a two-car garage, Mayor, to your question earlier, and then each driveway is a sufficient depth to accommodate two cars as well. So you've got 4 parking spaces for each unit, and then additionally, you have overflow along the curvature right there, right next to the centralized mailbox unit. In terms of trash, we also discussed flow for not only trash trucks, but more importantly, emergency service vehicles with staff when we met on multiple occasions with staff to refine this plan. I don't recall how many versions, but I think this is, Steve, 4 or 5. We've been through quite a number of iterations on this to accommodate engineering's concerns, zoning staff's concerns, and really a lot of other concerns that we heard. To the internal flow, that's also one of the reasons for the rollback curbing.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So this is going to be governed by like a central homeowners association or covenant of some nature?
Yes, Councilman.
Mr. Jones, kind of back to the link, and maybe Cletus Haskell get some guidance. What can we, what are y'all willing, what are you thinking you're willing to do? You see where we come off, and if we just go Y and come around and follow that and then pick up the sidewalk?
We have not discussed that or looked at the feasibility with Mr. Moore. We'll certainly carry that back to the applicant before this comes back to you
Okay.
and have them look at that. One thing that we have considered and have looked at is right now, you'll see the existing link as it runs along Newnan Crossing bypass is coterminous with the existing right-of-way, so there's no real distinction between the road and the link.
Right.
We're providing the right-of-way interior to the site. You can see that on the renderings that Mr. Moore has provided. So now there's going to be a landscape strip between Newnan Crossing bypass and the link as it exists in front of these townhomes. This video kind of gives you a better overview of that separation and the elevations. I know there was a question about which elevations face where. So this is coming down the bypass as you'll see those rear-loaded townhomes. And then again, that landscaping strip as it separates Newnan Crossing bypass from the easement for the relocation of the link.
think-
To the landscaping question, you'll see that Mr. Moore did a great job providing that landscaping strip for street trees in between the units. You'll see the auxiliary parking on the left, but you'll also note that each townhome does have 2 driveway parking spots and 2 garage parking spots. So there's tremendous parking for residents and guests. This is the rear of those front-loaded townhomes. These are interior to the site. And then again, you're coming back to the rear-loaded townhomes, and these are the ones that are going to be facing Newnan Crossing bypass. I do want to point out internal to the site too, there's also a green space area that exists with or in the same spot where the centralized mailbox unit will be located.
It's very attractive. I always kind of give, when somebody designs a link piece section, my default is I go back to a mother with little kids learning how to ride a bike, and where do they feel comfortable? And so we know, study after study, the most at ease they feel is when it runs off into the woods and there's no cars. But when your project is really pretty, by the way, I like it. But when that's it's called a shared use is what that is. It's not a dedicated link, it's a shared use with the sidewalk. And all of a sudden, when you come out of these woods and you got 2 kids on bikes and they're going everywhere, all of a sudden the mom or dad, they have to grab these kids and say, wait a minute, because if they make one wrong turn and they go into that traffic, and this is not a 25-mile-an-hour section, so the panic goes up. So really the link's most successful pieces are something like you've got available, when all of a sudden we can give them that comfort back there, and your residents will appreciate it as well. So I'd like to just, if y'all would consider working with staff on that, and let's understand what our opportunities are while we have a chance to look at them. I think it would be beneficial just to your site as well as Newnan as well. So I would appreciate you being willing to do that.
Certainly. Mr. Moore and I will look at that, or
Okay.
he's the engineer.
Okay,
I'll just keep following up with him.
okay.
To tag on to that, I'd like to see maybe a little self-contained amenity, whether it's a pickleball court with a basketball hoops, just something because just the link by itself, which is great, but not everybody would use it. And so just kind of, there's some backspace that, look like some of those green spaces to be able to put like pickleball in, because it's huge right now, just have a little community pickleball or something like that.
I got a question. Who do you think's just demographically wise, age-wise, family size-wise is going to be buying this?
Certainly. These units can flex in between 3-bedroom to 4-bedroom, so you've got an option in the interior build-out. We really think that this is a move-up buyer, empty nester kind of purchaser. Where we're targeting is in a townhome price point that we don't see currently represented, especially in this area. So we're with the applicants really thinking that the empty nester or later stage move-up buyer that would be purchasing these.
So not a lot of little kids.
No. Well, that's the discussion that we had as we were laying this out, is this targeted towards families or towards older couples or later stage in your life cycle or family process? And we really think it's towards that latter stage. Especially because one thing that the development will have, and Mr. Smith hit on this, is that connection with the adjacent development across the street, which is going to be a mixed-use development. We see that also as an amenity for that type of resident, that they're going to, the walkability of being able to access the mixed-use piece that is currently being proposed across the street. So then, without having to really cross the street, whatever their connection to the link ends up being. So, envision you get home, right, you change clothes and say, hey, let's walk across the street to whatever it is, the coffee shop or the Mexican restaurant or the, what may have you.
Anyone else?
I just have a comment. Being a resident of Stonebridge, which this backs up to, I think it's personally just a nice looking fit for the area.
Anyone?
That's it.
Any questions of staff? Anything else for staff? Are we done here?
Yeah.
there a motion to adjourn? Staff have any input?
We'll continue to work with the applicant based on the suggestions we've heard this evening and look at the feasibility of adding a link portion to the rear. And I think they're willing to look and explore that option if it's feasible.
Okay, last call. Motion to adjourn? Is there?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a motion?
Yes.
I make that motion.
Second.
Second to adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Work session is complete.